In 1990, a U.S. federal court reaffirmed this legal doctrine, stating that a physical ship could literally be sued as a person.
Which is pretty wild to think about today.
Right. It sounds completely bizarre to modern ears, like some ancient piece of maritime fiction. But tomorrow, that exact same legal loophole might be the specific mechanism a trillion-dollar tech conglomerate uses to avoid paying a single cent in damages when their artificial intelligence makes a fatal mistake.
Oh, yeah, that's the reality we're facing.
Welcome to today's Deep Dive. We are unpacking a huge stack of notes and insights from Ambat Legal Insight, and our mission today is to explore this foundational crisis looming over the global justice system.
It really is foundational.
It is. Because our entire modern legal framework, every contract, every liability clause, every courtroom procedure, it's all built on one massive, unstated assumption, which is that a human mind is ultimately making the decisions.
Exactly. I mean, the law fundamentally operates on that presumption of human agency. At the very end of any paper trail, the system expects to find a person or, a group of people who are capable of intent or negligence or malice.
Right. Someone you can point a finger at.
Precisely. Take that human mind out of the loop, and the mechanisms of justice just start to break down in ways our institutions are completely unprepared for.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we aren't talking about the narrow algorithms you and I use every day.
No, not at all.
We all know you listening are familiar with standard AI, the systems that analyze data sets, generate code, recommend a playlist, that kind of thing. Those are highly specialized tools.
Right, and legally, those are treated like any other product. If a specialized tool breaks, you just sue the manufacturer.
Exactly, like a calculator or a spell checker. But artificial general intelligence, or AGI, forces a total paradigm shift. We're talking about a system possessing broad cognitive flexibility, like a polymath.
Yes, and AGI can set its own sub-goals. It can seamlessly jump from conducting complex legal analysis to diagnosing a medical issue without being explicitly reprogrammed for that new task.
It learns and adapts in real time. So if AGI can learn and adapt like a human, how does a legal system built for humans even begin to categorize it?
What's fascinating here is that the friction isn't just about technology outpacing regulation. It's about AGI breaking the core philosophical tenets of the law itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Consider the concept of mens rea, the guilty mind. Criminal law requires proof that a person intended to commit a wrong or was at least recklessly indifferent.
Right. You have to prove state of mind.
Exactly. And even in civil law, we rely on foreseeability. We ask a jury, would a reasonable person have foreseen that their actions could cause this specific harm?
With an AGI.
An AGI processes billions of parameters. It arrives at conclusions through pathways that are mathematically opaque even to its own creators. You cannot assess the state of mind of a neural network.
Because even the programmers don't fully understand the internal logic, right? You can't ask a programmer to foresee a decision an autonomous system made by writing its own novel logic.
Exactly.
So let's ground this in a tangible scenario from the Ambat Legal Insight sources, because that abstract legal friction has terrifying real-world consequences.
It really does.
Imagine an AGI is fully integrated into a hospital's management system. It's tasked with optimizing patient care. Through its own autonomous reasoning, the AGI develops a completely novel treatment protocol for a patient.
A protocol no human doctor would have come up with.
Right. But that protocol ultimately results in severe bodily harm to the patient. Let's look at the paper trail. The hospital administration followed all approved deployment procedures. No human doctor ever intended this outcome.
And the developers who built the base AGI model could never have anticipated this specific, hyper-localized medical recommendation.
Right, so let me push back on those traditional legal concepts. Normally, if my dog bites someone, I'm liable. If my brakes fail, the manufacturer is liable. The law relies on negligence and foreseeability.
Yes.
But how can we apply foreseeability here?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, historically, the law always finds a human or a human-run entity to blame. Manufacturers, employers, governments.
Someone has to pay.
Right. Someone is lying in a hospital bed with life-altering injuries, and our entire tort law system demands that someone make them whole.
But in this scenario, the harmful outcome didn't emerge from human negligence.
No, it emerged from autonomous reasoning, not direct human decisions, which is why the sources outline a few proposed solutions to this accountability gap.
Like strict liability regimes.
Exactly. Under strict liability, if you deploy the AGI and it causes harm, you are financially responsible, period.
So it completely bypasses the need to prove foreseeability.
Yes. You deployed it, you pay for the damage. But the counter-argument there, which is fiercely debated, is that absolute strict liability would instantly freeze technological deployment.
Because the financial risk is just too massive.
Right. If a hospital knows they are on the hook for literally any unpredictable action an AGI takes, they just won't use it. This is why the sources also discuss mandatory insurance systems.
Like we have for human drivers.
Exactly. We mandate insurance because humans are risky. The proposal is to require massive corporate insurance funds solely to compensate victims of AGI decisions.
But wait, let me push back on that insurance mechanism. The entire insurance industry is based on actuarial tables, right?
That's true.
To price a premium, an underwriter has to calculate the statistical probability of a specific failure. How in the world do you calculate a premium for a black box AGI whose failure modes are, by definition, unpredictable?
You really can't. That actuarial nightmare is precisely why many legal scholars in the Ambat Legal Insight papers lean toward a framework of shared responsibility.
Oh, so splitting the blame.
Yeah, dividing it among developers, deployers, and operators. Instead of laying the entire burden on one party, you forcefully distribute the liability across the whole life cycle.
To force everyone to maintain safety standards.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If we are struggling this much to pin the blame on the human creators, it naturally leads to one of the most controversial legal debates of our lifetime.
The question of the AGI itself.
Yes. If we can't cleanly blame the humans, do we legally blame the AGI itself? Do we give it legal personhood?
And giving non-humans legal personhood isn't actually a new sci-fi concept, as you mentioned with the ship in the 1990 case.
Right, it's already a thing.
The law routinely grants personhood to non-biological entities. We do it for corporations, for municipalities. If AGI is sufficiently autonomous, giving it legal recognition could actually simplify things.
Wait, how does that simplify anything?
Well, it allows courts to assign it responsibilities, manage its assets, and enter it into contracts. Functionally, it gives the law a target.
Okay, but wait. If we make an AGI a legal person, couldn't massive tech companies just use this as the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card?
That is the core danger. Absolutely.
Like, they could just throw up their hands and say, "Don't sue us, our AGI did it." Like an LLC on steroids. A weaponized liability shield.
You've hit on the exact fear keeping regulators awake at night. The debate over whether legal personhood will be used as a corporate shield to protect human actors from accountability is going to be one of the defining legal controversies of the coming era.
So they siphon all the profits, but the moment the AGI collapses a power grid, they declare algorithmic bankruptcy.
Exactly. And the human executives walk away untouched. It's the ultimate laundering of corporate negligence. Lawmakers have to design this category so it cannot be utilized as an impermeable corporate veil.
Wow. Okay, let's take that a step further. We've seen how AGI complicates private sector accountability and corporate liability. But the stakes get exponentially higher when we move to the public sector.
When it starts running government systems?
Yes. Governments are going to use AGI for policymaking, resource allocation, public administration. But democracy relies on accountability.
It relies on citizens questioning officials and seeking judicial review. And the transition into the public sector elevates this from a crisis of liability to a crisis of democratic survival.
So what does this all mean? Let's frame this for you listening. If you don't like a new tax law, you can vote out the politician who wrote it or protest at City Hall.
Right.
But if a critical government recommendation, like who gets public housing funds, comes from an AGI whose reasoning is impossible to explain, who do you vote out? How do you subpoena a black box?
This raises an important question regarding constitutional survival. Future constitutions will require entirely new safeguards specifically addressing AI transparency.
Like mandatory human oversight.
Yes. The AMBAT sources suggest governments may be legally barred from deploying any AGI system whose decision-making pathways cannot be translated into human-readable logic, no matter how efficient it is.
Explainability has to be a fundamental human right.
It has to be. Furthermore, we have to look at the massive human rights threat regarding surveillance. AGI could analyze vast amounts of personal info to predict behavior.
It can anticipate what we do.
Exactly. It can influence public discourse and enable unprecedented scales of surveillance. It can subtly shape public opinion without the public ever realizing they're being managed.
Which creates an invisible chilling effect, right?
Yeah.
Directly threatening freedom of expression, political participation, equality, and human dignity.
People will preemptively self-censor. It restricts behavioral freedom before a single law is ever broken.
That is terrifying. And as daunting as that is domestically, the breakdown of human accountability and rights reaches its absolute climax when we move from domestic policy to life and death scenarios on the global stage.
The militarization of AGI.
Yes, the military dilemma. AGI assisting battlefield commanders, running cyber operations, strategic planning. But international humanitarian law, like the Geneva Conventions, fundamentally assumes humans are making the decisions about the use of force.
It's predicated on human morality and proportionality.
Right. So if an AGI-supported military operation causes unlawful civilian casualties, is it a war crime, a tragic glitch, or both?
It's a profound legal and moral void.
At what point does human control become so distant that international law just completely breaks down?
That is one of the greatest challenges to the legal framework of warfare since the Geneva Conventions themselves. And AGI calculates statistics, not morality.
Like, if it decides sacrificing a hospital saves more lives in the long run, under the Geneva Conventions, intentionally targeting a hospital is unequivocally a war crime.
Exactly. Regardless of the broader strategic calculus. And if humans are no longer in control of the use of force, international law does break down. We're looking at algorithmic warfare devoid of legal accountability.
Which naturally leads to the question of who will regulate this? Who is going to write the rules? You look at the news, it's all US, China, and Europe.
They definitely dominate the current talks. The US pushes for market-driven innovation, China focuses on state security, and the EU acts as the global referee with preemptive regulation.
But the sources point somewhere else, right?
Yes. The Ambat sources highlight India's unique role.
Really? Why India?
Well, as the world's largest democracy, with immense digital governance experience and a booming tech sector, India has a massive opportunity.
Oh, because of their digital public infrastructure.
Exactly. They have spent the last decade proving they can build technology at a population-wide scale, treating it as a public utility rather than a private monopoly.
So they have the actual blueprint.
Yeah.
They can balance innovation with accountability and actually write the rules of the next era rather than just adopting foreign models.
Yes, their voice will be instrumental. They represent the Global South's requirement for technological growth, paired with a democratic mandate.
It's incredible. Which brings us to the core thesis of everything we've explored today. The biggest threat from AGI isn't some science fiction catastrophe.
No, it's not a rogue robot with a laser gun.
It's much more boring and much more dangerous. It's the fact that our legal systems are completely unprepared for intelligence that isn't human.
The existential threat is structural failure, and the timeline is compressing.
Right. And to you listening, remember that these aren't theoretical discussions for the distant future. Questions of responsibility, warfare, democracy, and rights are emerging policy challenges happening right now.
The nations building frameworks today will dictate the future of humanity.
Exactly. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a new thought to chew on that builds on the source material. We talked about granting AGI legal personhood so it can be held liable.
To give the law a target, yeah.
But if we eventually have to grant AGI legal personhood so it faces legal responsibilities, does that mean the law will eventually be forced to grant it legal rights and protections too?
Oh, wow.
Right. If an AGI can be sued, could it also be considered a victim? Does an autonomous system have a right against being arbitrarily deleted?
If duty breeds rights, the arrival of AGI is really going to test the moral limits of our jurisprudence.
If you build a world where decisions aren't made by humans, you better make sure your courtrooms understand the minds taking their place. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Ambat Legal Insight. Ponder if the world is legally prepared, and as always, stay curious.
Subscribe to Ambat Legal Insight and stay legally informed with clear, practical, and reliable breakdowns of the law. Follow our channel and activate the bell icon so you never miss important legal updates, case analyses, and expert insights that matter to every citizen. Support our mission of spreading legal awareness by liking, sharing, and commenting, because your one action can help thousands become more legally empowered. Join the ALI community today across YouTube, podcast, and social platforms and take a step toward understanding your rights, your laws, and your justice. Ambat Legal Insight, because law is for everyone.